Prince Harry's next visa hearing is just around the corner. What's going to happen? I've brought your favourite DC lawyer, John Witherspoon, to explain more. Hey up everyone, it's me, Stef, the alternate, your nerdy alternative, and welcome to the Dose, the Daily Nerd, where I break down the royal news and gossip of the day that's pretty much caught me eye. And oh my goodness, yes, let's jump into it with your favourite DC lawyer, John Witherspoon. Thank you so much for joining in today's video, because it's just been announced Prince Harry's next visa hearing is next week. I believe it's February the 5th in Washington, DC. And so I thought, do you know what? I got so many messages from you guys being like, oh my goodness, we've just heard Prince Harry's next visa hearings next week. Can't wait to hear from DC lawyer John Witherspoon on this one. Your wish is my command, guys. So, with that being said, John, I believe the next hearing next week is all to do with this appeal that we reported on towards the end of last year. So, first up, can you just explain in a nutshell what the actual point of this appeal is all about?
Absolutely, Steph, and it's good to be with you. Thank you for having me back on. This appeal is what they call a Rule 59E motion. And as you can see there on the screen down at the bottom, it says oral argument requested. And this hearing next week is that oral argument that Heritage Foundation has asked for. Basically, what's going on is this. This case started out when Heritage Foundation asked Homeland Security and the United States Department of State to release Harry's visa files because they thought that there was sufficient interest from the public in finding out whether he had told the truth about his drug use or if he had been deceptive about it and had not admitted to the same things that he talked about in his book, Spare. So there was a hearing last year, about a year ago in late winter, where Heritage Foundation and Niall Gardner and some attorneys from the Homeland Security Department squared off in the courtroom of Judge Carl Nichols in Washington, D.C., and they both presented each their own sides of the argument. Judge Nichols took all of that information along with the written submissions from each side, and he ruled on their request, which had previously been denied by the State Department to open up Harry's visa file. However, when he ruled, he redacted means blacked out, so much of the text that Heritage Foundation felt like it was unfair to them because they would not be able to mount a sufficient appeal. And the reason that the judge deleted or redacted a lot of the text was because he thought it contained sensitive information, that if he actually allowed it into his opinion and it was public and available to be read, his argument was, well, this would basically reveal all the information about Prince Harry's visa status. So he was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, saying, I got to make this ruling, but at the same time, I've got to protect this information. And Heritage Foundation said, you went too far, Judge. We don't have an opportunity to read what you wrote and then respond to it in the form of an appeal. So they filed a Rule 59E motion. What Rule 59E does, for lack of a better analogy, it's kind of like you got your math test back from your teacher in school, and you realize that there's been a math error, or you think there's been a math error of some sort when the teacher added up the points, and you go back to the judge or the teacher and you say, excuse me, sir, with all due respect, I think you've made a mistake here in the way that you ruled and the way that you handled this, or on your math test, the way you added up my score. Would you mind taking another look? And that's what they're doing here. It's kind of a pre-appeal, so that before Heritage Foundation has to take the time and the trouble and the expense to go to the Court of Appeals and say, tell Judge Nichols that he messed this up, they can go straight back to Judge Nichols and say, hey, we think you messed this up. Please take another look at this. And we would like an opportunity to tell you why in person and respond to questions back and forth from you about our request for you to remove some of these redacted parts of your opinion so that we can then file an effective appeal in the Court of Appeals. It's basically a time and effort and money saving mechanism, and it makes sense. It's the right way to set the system up rather than, as I said, take up the time and the energy of the appeals court. Before going to the appeals court, you can just say, hey, Judge, we think you messed this up. Please take another look at this. And then if he still says, no, I'm not going to change anything, then, of course, they can go up to the Court of Appeals, which is a 3-judge panel. It's actually in basically the adjacent building to the United States court where this is being held right now. But the really interesting thing about this whole thing is that the last time Homeland Security's lawyers and State Department's lawyers were in front of Judge Nichols, it was the Biden administration. Well, as I think everybody is aware, last week, Monday, it became the Trump administration. So these lawyers are no longer working for President Biden and his Secretary of State and his Secretary of Homeland Security. They now work for a different boss who work for Donald Trump, an entirely different philosophy. And as we know, Donald Trump has said publicly, as it says on the screen there, I'm not going to protect Prince Harry in the way that President Biden did. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. We won't go into them now. Basically, Donald Trump does not care for Prince Harry for a variety of reasons. He thinks Prince Harry was disrespectful to his grandmother, the late Queen, among a whole host of other things. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see exactly what those lawyers show up in court and say. So I'm hoping to be there. It should be a very interesting hearing. Last time I was down there a year ago, there were reporters from the British press who had come down from New York. There are reporters from British press organizations who were local in DC, got a lot of good attention, and it's just going to be very, very interesting. I guess the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, is that if I was Prince Harry, boy, I've said this before, but I think it applies even more at this point. I would be really, really nervous. He's either going to be likely embarrassed by the unveiling of the contents of his visa file, or he's just going to receive a lot of negative public attention. And as if he needs any more negative public attention, this is just going to start the whole process over again. And he can complain all he wants about how he's being persecuted and put upon and everything else. But sooner or later, Niall Gardner and the Heritage Foundation, I think, are probably going to make some progress on this. And it's just going to be a question of time and how it all unfolds. So very, very interesting week ahead.
Definitely. And so I have 2 questions here. Firstly, is there a way that the judge is able to provide all the information that the Heritage Foundation requires in order for them to mount, a fair appeal, an appeal that they can actually mount instead of being cut off the legs, without it going public, like, I don't know, like a private or closed decision from the judge that isn't open to the public for privacy reasons, this, that, and the other. That's my first question, John. Is there a way that the judge can do that?
It's conceivable, yes. There are mechanisms, and I would need to go back and look and see exactly how those would apply. Normally, that would be something, I think, that would be a scenario like you're describing would probably be something involving a national security matter of some sort, or if there were classified documents of some sort that were labeled secret or of something for some particular reason.
Yeah, because
I
what I'm
don't,
trying to get at is the judge can't turn around and use it as an excuse saying, look, we're going to deny you appeal because I can't release this information, blah, 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 because we can't get it into the public right now, blah, blah, blah. So there is a way for the judge to get around that, to give the Heritage Foundation the information so that they can actually mount an appeal rather than be cut off the legs because it's all blacked
yes.
out. My second question is, okay, so this visa hearing next week on February the 5th, if they do rule in the Heritage Foundation's favour, which I'm expecting they
Mhm.
will do, especially now that we're in the Trump administration rather than the Biden administration, what will happen next after that? What do you envisage will happen next?
Well, the fact that the administration has changed is not going to affect the way the judge deals with this because he's going to apply the same legal principles that he felt were appropriate to apply before. So he's not directly affected by the change of administration. However, it may be the case that the Homeland Security and State Department lawyers might say, you know what? We've changed our mind. We have a whole different perspective on this now, and we're not going to object if some of this information is unredacted as it is. I just want to point out as well that it's not likely that there's going to be a decision on this on Wednesday of next week. I think what the judge is going to do is to listen to all these arguments and then go back to his desk and rehash some of the decisions that he made originally about redacting the information. So I suspect what will happen is that we'll have the hearing, probably be some interesting things come out of it, but it's not going to be the end all of the case. I think he's probably going to go back to his desk, as I said, issue a ruling at some point down the road, at which, again, we'll either get a new version of the opinion with some of the redactions removed, or he's going to say, you know what, I'm happy with what I did. I listened to your arguments, and I don't want to make any changes. So if you guys want to go up to the Court of Appeals and have them tell me to redact some of the information, then that's fine. But we're not going to get a decision one way or the other on Wednesday. But as I said, it should be really interesting.
Given that Donald Trump has been very vocal against Prince Harry and this whole visa situation, is it conceivable that President Trump could just turn around to Homeland Security and the lawyers and just say, drop this thing? I mean, he did turn round in an interview with Nigel Farage last year and said, you know, that he does believe it is in the American public interest to find out what's on this visa application.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And here's what's really interesting, too. This is another twist that I don't think anybody saw coming. If anybody's paid attention to the news over the last 10 days or so, President Trump has been on an absolute rampage. When you talk about hitting the ground running, I mean, this is hitting the ground going at the speed of sound almost. It's unbelievable. Everybody's probably seen the pictures of the executive orders stacked up on the desk when he was just going through and signing them one after another. I mean, it's just absolutely remarkable. What that says to me and what it says to a lot of other people is that he's trying to get a lot of stuff done. And he's also going down into some rabbit holes that nobody really expected him to go down this quickly. And given what he has said publicly about we're going to get rid of all this DEI business in the United States, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying this is what he has said. We're going to get rid of DEI. We're going to, we're only going to have two genders. We are not going to allow organizations to interfere in First Amendment issues and engage in accusations of misinformation and all these types of things. A lot of these issues directly bear on the things that Prince Harry has been talking about and running his mouth. And I said previously, if Prince Harry was smart, he would literally disappear from the radar screen for the next 4 years. I don't think he's capable of doing that because he's too starved for attention, and he views himself as too much of a conquistador who's out to save the world. And as long as he maintains that posture, he's going to invariably, sooner or later, he's going to attract the attention of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is very much in a position to mess with him. He really is. And whether Prince Harry is smart enough to keep his head down, as I suggested, um, I think is an open question. And as I said, I suspect that he's not likely to be inclined to just keep quiet, stop all this business of trying to involve himself in the what some people are calling the censorship industrial complex, stop all this business of piling up money with other people to go out and try and buy newspapers in little small towns all over the United States so that he can have some editorial control over them. Um, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that I'm sure Donald Trump, sooner or later, is going to look at him and say, I'm really tired of hearing from Prince Harry. He is a pest that I would like to be rid of. And he's going to take appropriate action that he feels is the right thing to do, just to shut down Prince Harry, shut him up. Um, it's almost inevitable that there's going to be some sort of butting of heads at some point. And I guarantee you that Donald Trump is not going to be on the losing end when Prince Harry and he get into it over something or other.
So when it comes down to it, Prince Harry could lose his visa, could lose at the next visa hearing because of Donald Trump. President Trump could just turn round to the Homeland Security lawyers and be like, drop this thing like it's hot shiz, just get this visa application released to the Heritage Foundation, and whatever happens at that point. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle must be quaking in their boots at this point.
Well, I think so. I really think so. I mean, the new Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, she was out the other day. She was pictured on TV. I don't know if it was in Chicago or New York. She was out there with a bulletproof vest, a tactical bulletproof vest on, and helping out in these immigration raids and so forth. I mean, this is basically unheard of. She's not sitting around in an office doing the same old that her predecessors have done. She's actually making taking affirmative steps to see exactly what's going on, to dive deep into the immigration issues and all these other things. And you got to remember, you've got the president, Donald Trump, you've got Secretary Noem, I'm just talking about, and then you've got the Homeland Security attorneys who work directly for the secretary, who works directly for the president. And the other interesting thing about it, too, is that this is probably familiar for people in the United States, but maybe not so much on other parts of the world. But Donald Trump is literally drilling down into the United States government and getting very involved in hirings and firings and buyout offers and so forth over huge, huge swaths of the United States government. And again, this is indicative of somebody who really wants to be involved at all levels of all processes within the federal government. It's really unheard of, and it's really remarkable. So with that as a background, I can easily see him saying, you know what? Oh, while we're trying to clean up messes and put all the pieces in order, let's get this Prince Harry business off the table. There would have been a time several months ago or even weeks ago when I have said, no, that would be small-minded, that would be too silly. The president of the United States has more important things to think about. I no longer feel that way at all. I think it's entirely conceivable that Donald Trump could say, I am tired of Prince Harry. He's a pest. He's a nuisance. He's a rude and ungrateful guest in this country. And I'm not interested in having him around anymore. Simple as that.
It's definitely going to be interesting. What's going to be the outcome of the next visa hearing? With that being said, guys, if you appreciated what John said, and of course you did, then make sure you head on over to his Instagram at witherspoondc. If you have any questions about what he said today or in any of the previous videos on this channel, this is the way to contact him. He may not be able to answer all of your questions, but it's a way to contact nonetheless. Make sure on your way out you do subscribe to join our Alter Nerd tribe for more coverage on the Prince Harry visa case. We've been covering it here right from the start, so if you don't want to miss out on any further updates, subscribe to join our Alter Nerd tribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. And until next time, you guys, laters.